knowledge, whether in business, in technology, and everything, that if we start focusing on how we can utilize those skills back in the rural areas where we came from or where our forefathers or parents came from, then it will make sense for young people who are going to school or getting educated in some of those rural areas to start looking at opportunities that we can create for them. I see that the trend is beginning to take place, but in a different format, and this is by the diaspora, who are investing back home, building houses with all the conveniences in their home state, or even some in their home villages. The advantage is being that when you go back to your village, you don't pay the same price for land as you would if you were trying to establish yourself in an urban area. With the advent of technology, you can be able to provide the same services in a rural setting as you would get in an urban area. You can have, access to satellite, where you can have, connectivity to internet, and also, with the solar power, you can be able to provide, the power that you need. I mean, Africa has got an abundance of power, of sun, which means solar power is really should be our major source of energy. As far as water is concerned, drilling boreholes, which can supply quite a substantial number for people in a particular area. So if you have got your connectivity that you can make your calls anywhere in the world, you can have access to any of the world programs, whether it's CNN, BBC, or any of the other African channels and so forth. And you can do all your work remotely. You can actually do your stock market from any part of the world. So when you got that type of infrastructure in place, then it means you need people who service those facilities and so forth, which means young people can now train for these skills that are predominant in the urban areas, start training them to utilize those skills in the rural areas. So I think this is something that we must take into account, that opportunities don't only exist in urban areas, but they exist anywhere. It's really a question of us having to put our thoughts together and see how we can establish, ourselves and provide those services in a rural setting. So that is my message today. In summary, we should destroy the myth, that it's only urban areas, where we can make a livelihood. The rural areas that we live have got more potential than we can find in the urban areas, and that's where we must utilize our skills to enhance the quality of life of our people. In most countries, you find that this type of responsibilities have been left in the hands of NGOs. These non-governmental organizations, they are not really there for charity, but they are to enhance the interests of the countries that they come from. So don't look at the NGOs as the salvation. We have to be our own liberators. We have to be our own saviors. So I hope with this, you can give it a thought. Next time you find yourself without a job in an urban area and so forth, start looking at your home village, start looking into the rural area and see what opportunities can come your way. Thank you so much. Okay, bye.
Thank you, Mr. Mafondera.
Okay. If there are any questions, any comments, I'll be glad to take any. Yeah, otherwise, I'll take note and then try to address them maybe next weekend.
If there is one question from GM Val. He's asking what is what's your name and where is he speaking from?
Okay, my name is Christopher Mapondera. I'm co-founder of Bill Murray. I'm based in Washington, D.C. I'm speaking to you from Washington, D.C. I'm in a car. That the advantage of technology is that you can communicate from anywhere in any place. Yes, Christopher Mapondera. I'm originally from Zimbabwe. Well, I'm from Zimbabwe. I still have a home in Zimbabwe as much as I have a home here in the USA. But I do try to do the best I can to do things at home. I operate a farm in Zimbabwe. I also sponsor a number for young people, to go to school. So that's really what I'm about. Any other questions or comments?
No other question.
Yeah. Okay, Joyce. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. We can continue with the reports. Amara Johnston, can you hear me?
Hello, everybody on the call.
Yes, hi. You can go on with the report.
All right. Good day to my fellow brothers and sisters on the call. Good afternoon. It depends on where you are. I am Ambassador Amara Jones giving the report for the activities that took place in our country group. I'm presenting this report that started from the 3rd of April to yesterday, the 9th of April 2021 rather. Summary of key activities. For last week's thorough call, we had an educative and interactive Zoom meeting. Moderator Augustine appreciated members and ambassadors who joined the meeting, and he also encouraged everyone to register for today's call. This week, we welcomed a good number of new members in our group. After that, the I Love Black People readable materials were posted to the group by Sister Yvonne for new members to go through them. Moderator Augustine engaged the group with a daily topics of discussions, ranging from Africans' liberation heroes in Sierra Leone, the history of Zambia before and after independence, followed by Sierra Leone history, African traditional foodstuff versus refined foodstuff. All these topics were actively discussed by some active members in the group. A transportation system analysis in South Africa was posted to the group. Our country group honored the memory of the victims of the genocide in Rwanda on the 7th of April 2021. And images of female leaders or soldiers who commanded an army of warriors against European colonizers were kept to the group. The newly added members were asked to introduce themselves, and some did so. Meeting notifications and a link of joining the Saturday call were received in the group on daily basis. Our commitment still remains motivated in protecting our Black fellows from racism and xenophobia. Now at this junction, permit me to give a brief summary of COVID-19 updates. For Sierra Leone, the cumulative confirmed cases so far is 3,995. Cumulative death is 79. Cumulative recovery is 2,828. Active new cases as of yesterday is 2. Total in quarantine, 61. Total number of those being discharged from quarantine is 14,677. Gender confirmed cases, female, 1,647, male, 2,348. the MRU new confirmed cases. We have 4 countries in the MRU, Mano River Union. That is, we have Sierra Leone, Guinea, Liberia, and Ivory Coast. So the new confirmed cases in this week in all of these countries are Sierra Leone got 2, Guinea this week got 192, Liberia recorded 0 cases, Ivory Coast recorded 95 new cases. Total number of new cases in the Mano River Union countries is 289. Then for the MRU Mano River Union cumulative death for Sierra Leone so far is 79. Guinea is 132. Liberia is 85. Ivory Coast is 258. So the total cumulative death for the 4 countries in the MRU is 554. Total tests conducted for Sierra Leone as of yesterday is 499. This is a brief summary of the report for this week. I am Amara Jones, ambassador. I am because I am.
Yes, thank you, Amara Johnson from Sierra Leone. Up next, we have Derry Anthony from Ghana. Derry, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes. Go on.
Can I talk?
Yes, you can start.
Good afternoon to everybody on the platform, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to give report about activities that went on in the Ghana group within the week. To begin with, as usual, members who attended last week's Zoom meeting were thanked and asked to confirm the attendance for today's meeting. To begin with, members were encouraged to invite more friends and family members to join the I Love People family. Various social media links were given for the invitation. Also, a topic for discussion was kept in the group. The topic was Africa's liberation heroes in this country. The story behind Ubuntu was kept on the page for members to read. At the end, we got to know that Ubuntu simply means I am because we are. In addition, within the week, we had a lot of discussions about Ghana. We discussed about the landmarks, population, tribes, and the uncountable tourist centers in the country. We urge each and everyone in this family to find time to visit Ghana to experience the tourist centers we have. It was also said in the group that the family found out that most of the members are finding it difficult to recommend businesses. The family had decided that to make it easier, we should submit the business recommendations in the group. A format was given for members to follow for their recommendations. Also, a video was kept in the group. The video was simply encouraging the blacks that we should be happy with our color, and also our genes are dominant genes, not recessive genes. It was added in the video that black is beautiful and black is natural. Again, an image was kept in the group honoring the memory of the 1994 Rwandans victim of the genocide against the Tutsi on the 7th April. It was added that this reminds us that it's our duty to ensure that the past is not forgotten. Also, images of Queen Nzinga of Angola was kept in the page. A lot was said about her bravery nature to command an army of warriors against European colonizers in order to bring peace to her people. Again, an image of George McLaurin, the first black man admitted at the University of Oklahoma in 1948, was kept in the group, telling us briefly about how he was isolated from his class because of his color, but he never gave up. Upon the racial segregation on him, he stayed focused to achieve his goal. Last but not least, new members were added to the group. Rules and regulations were spelled out to them. Documents of the family were added to them, and they were much about the family. COVID-19 updates in Ghana. Ghana has so far recorded a total of 91,109 since the emergence of COVID-19. Out of this, the active cases are 1,386. The number of recoveries are 88,971, and the deaths recorded so far are 751. Number of people vaccinated so far are 599,128. Report from Ghana. Derry Anthony, I am because we are. Thank you.
I am because we are. Thanks so much. Up next, we have Imran Ibrahim from Nigeria.
So which people?
Imran, can you hear me?
Hey, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. The members of this great movement of I Love Black People movement. Good evening, everyone. I Love Black People weekly activities report from 2nd of 4th 2021 to 8th of 4th 2021 from Nigeria, West Africa. Before then, we last week had an executive Zoom meeting, an interactive Zoom meeting. Mr. Agustin Pandi appreciated all members and ambassadors that joined the last week's Saturday call, and also encouraged members and ambassadors to register for this call today. This week, we welcome new members on the ground. The group rules was posted for new members to go through for the maximum cooperation. Meeting notification and links of joining Saturday Zoom call were posted on the ground. The newly added members were asked to introduce themselves by telling their names, region, town or cities, photos, and their interest of joining I Love Black People movement. Some do so well. Our commitment still remain motivated in protecting our Black compatriots from racism and xenophobia. The 1994 Rwanda genocide commemoration topic for chatting were posted. A brief bio of one of the liberation heroes, Queen Zinga, was posted. The history of Zambia before and after independence was shared on the platform. Members and ambassadors were asked to submit business recommendations. COVID-19 update in Nigeria. Nigeria has so far tested a sample of about 1,803,177. The total cases from that tested samples are 166,581. That's confirmed cases. The total of recovered are 154,005. The total of deaths are 2,058. The total number of active cases, those that are active here currently, are 7,518. The total number of cases from 22 March to 9th April are 1,306. The total number in quarantine, not specified. Total number of discharge from quarantine, not specified. The infection rate is on the increase. The most populated state in Nigeria is Lagos State, with the following data recorded. The confirmed cases are 57,990. The discharge cases are 56,990. Death cases, 439. Cases on admission are 471. Followed by Federal Capital Territory Abuja with the following data recorded. Confirmed cases are 19,697. Discharge cases are 19,089. Death cases are 164. The cases on admission currently are 453. Mandatory use of face masks has been instituted. A nationwide use of COVID-19 vaccine started. Nigeria received about 3.98 doses of vaccine from China shipped by COVAX. Doses of vaccine given are
Hello, Ibrahim. Can you hear me?
$185 doses per 100 the doses for one out of 100 received the vaccine. Report submitted by Imran Ibrahim. Zoom name Imran Ibrahim. I am because
Thank you, Ibrahim. Mr. Mapondera, can you hear me?
Hello. Sorry.
If there is a question for you.
Okay, just a minute. Let me just depart somewhere here. And then I can, yeah, just give me a minute or two.
No problem.
Sorry.
So, in the meantime, we can continue with the Lindowe Postula from South Africa.
Okay. I can address the question now. I'm well situated now.
Yes, no problem. The question is, what does he do to make sure that a lot of Zimbabwe get the skills?
What was the question again?
Nixon was asking, what did you do to make sure that a lot of Zimbabweans get the skills?
Get the skill?
Yes, get the skills.
Well, you know, Zimbabwe had one of the most developed educational systems at the time of independence. And we sort of built upon that in the sense that there were a lot of technical schools that were built throughout the country, training people in various trades, you know, carpenters, welders, boiler makers, you know, the kind of skills that were necessary to run industries. And secondly, our former president put a lot of emphasis on education. As some of you may know, Zimbabwe has got the highest literacy rates on the African continent, pretty close to 93%, which is even higher than the United States and Europe and most countries in Europe. We put a lot of emphasis for the size of country we have, only 14 million people. We've got over 15 universities. We have 10 provinces, and each province has got a university providing all kinds of skills, you know, engineering, agriculture, and many of them are aspiring to have medical schools as well. So this is really what has helped Zimbabwe to gain the level of skills, you know, that we boast of now. Because of the educational policies that we adopted and expanded on after independence, you find that at the time of independence in South Africa, where a lot of skilled white people left to go to Europe, to go to Australia and so forth, Zimbabweans played a major role there because of the high number of people that had been trained in skills, more or less went into South Africa and filled in part of the void, skills void that was created by the exodus of whites. Yeah, I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, thank you. There is another question from Tokozo. He's asking, Like, do you believe in Pan-Africanism?
Do I believe in Pan-Africanism? Is that the question?
Yes, that was his question.
Well, my talk every Saturday has been looking at the various aspects of Pan-Africanism. I believe in Pan-Africanism. I'm a product of Pan-Africanism, in the sense, that before we attained our independence in Zimbabwe, the Pan-African movement represented at state level by different presidents, like Kwame Nkrumah, Kenneth Kaunda, Julius Nyerere, the Abdul Nasser in Egypt, Belbena in the, Algeria, and all that. So the whole of Africa united to see that we got rid of colonialism, which meant that we got a lot of support to fight our war against our colonizers. We had the young people from Zimbabwe, Rhodesia at the time, trained in Nigeria, in Ethiopia, in Tanzania, in Zambia, in Mozambique. So that was one way in which Pan-Africanism exhibited itself. And right now, institutions that have been built around the Pan-African concept is the whole concept of the African Union. And now, beside the African Union, I would say it started off mostly from a political base, but right now it's now moving away from concentrating on the liberation of Africa, simply because all African countries have been liberated from colonial rule. So what we are now doing is to liberate ourselves economically. That's why you got the formation of the new AFTA, the African Free Trade Agreement, so that we start looking into trade, economics, infrastructure from a continental level. You no longer just look at doing a road in Kano, but you've got to see, how does that road link up with parts, countries, northern part of Nigeria, or countries to the east or west of Nigeria. Same thing, even though the concept was espoused by Cecil Rhodes from an imperialist point of view, but it was the Cape to Cairo highway, which is now being created and expanded on. So there's a free movement of African people from one country to the other, free movement of goods and services. So I believe in Pan-Africanism. That is the only way we can be able to save ourselves as an African people, and not only confined to Africa alone, but wherever there's any person of African origin is part of the Pan-African movement, whether it is in Latin America, Europe, or wherever. We have a common destiny, we have a common origin, so we always have to look at things collectively. Any other question?
Yes, there is another question from Tokozo. He's asking, what do you think that the youth can play within the role of Pan-Africanism within current time and in the future?
Okay, when you give me the names, can you also tell me where they are from? Where is the questioner from? Hello?
Yes, he didn't mention, maybe he can, yes, he's from South Africa.
Oh, South Africa, yeah, okay. Yeah, can you go over that question again?
Yes, he was asking, what do you think that the youth can play within the role of Pan-Africanism within the current time and in the future?
Well, as you know, historically, it's the youth that have been the vanguard of every revolution. The youth have been these agents of change. Even in South Africa itself, it was the youth who came out, during the Sharpeville massacre. It was the youth who inspired to the world to look much more closely at what was happening in South Africa. In Zimbabwe, it was the same thing. It was when the youth left schools in droves to go to Mozambique to train as freedom fighters that you started seeing a change. It was the youth within the country that started making a change, and it was very difficult for the authorities to control. The Vietnam War in the U.S. was stopped because of what the youth did, by starting to rebel against and speaking against the war, because they are the ones who were being made cannon fodder, to be put forward. They were drafted into the army and trained and sent to Vietnam to fight a war which had nothing to do with their own being in the U.S. But when they were sent to Vietnam, they found out that there were also young people were the vanguard of the Vietnamese struggle that were fighting the Americans. In Egypt, they did the same thing. That Hosni Mubarak was moved from power by youth who rebelled against his draconian rule, and because the youth now understood the technology of communication, they were able to rally the whole society and were able to bring about change. So this is why, during this Saturday, discussions or presentations, I try to illustrate what Pan-Africanism is all about. In short, by Pan-Africanism, we are really talking of how, as an African people, regardless of where you live, whether it's Africa, Europe, Latin America, as long as you're a person of African descent, you're part of the same cause. So the youth have got a very, very big role to play. My generation, we took over from, the generation of Kwame Nkrumah, Nyerere, and so forth. And then the next generation, which includes yourselves, is the one that is going to look at the implications and application of technology in enhancing the interests of the African people. Okay, I hope that that's it. Yeah. Anything else? Anybody else?
The same person commented that actually when it comes to Sharpeville massacre, the Pan-Africanist Congress in South Africa is the one which played the role.
The Pan-Africanist of Congress of South Africa
is the one which played the role. It was the comment he was making.
Well, the struggle in South Africa, there were two main organizations that really waged the struggle, which was the ANC and the and the PAC. ANC, of course, was led by Oliver Tambo, and Nelson Mandela was in prison. Oliver Tambo was out, waging the struggle. And then Sobukwe, Mangaliso Sobukwe was the head of the Pan-African PAC, the Pan-African Congress, actually called the Pan-African Congress of Azania. They prefer to use Azania, as the original name for for South Africa. I had some experiences. I mean, I knew some guys from the PAC at the time. They were even much more radical than the ANC was, you know, at the point. But again, they were a smaller party than the ANC, but they, you know, played their role in the struggle. But at the end of the day, the South African struggle ended up being a negotiated settlement, in the sense that the South African whites or South African regime found it in their interest to negotiate with the ANC for a settlement, which resulted in the release of Nelson Mandela coming from prison. And this was done again to not end up with a chaotic situation. They did not want to have the South African struggle deteriorate to the point where, like in Zimbabwe, you know, where no part of the country was no longer safe for any white people. So I can't say definitely the ANC was the dominant party. That more people trained in the, you know, to fight the war and so forth. But PAC was also playing a role, you know. But I think it's for the South Africans themselves to judge as to, you know, whom they give all the credit to for the liberation of South Africa, or they give credit to both the organizations.
The last question. The last question is from Roland Gassam from Cameroon.
Yes.
Is asking, can we put an end to colonialist currency in Africa, especially French-speaking countries?
Well, again, you must understand how some of the African countries attained independence. Some, for Southern Africa, Mozambique, Angola, Namibia, we won our independence through armed struggle. So there was quite a major shift in the monetary system that we have. I mean, almost all of us converted, you know, into our own currencies. But for the French colonies, it's a different thing altogether, because the conditions under which they were provided with their independence was that France continued to have a stranglehold on their economy and on their politics and so forth, you know, foreign policy and all that. So having your own currency is one demonstration of your independence, you know, that you must have your own money. But I subscribe to what Gaddafi was promoting, that there should be one African currency, which would be backed by the resources that we have in Africa. And that is really probably part of the reason why, you know, Gaddafi was eliminated, because he was trying to destroy the international monetary system that is based on the US dollar. So, which shows the importance of having your own currency. In the past, the US dollar used to be pegged against the gold reserves, but the US realized now that there are more countries who have got more gold than they do. So if they're going to pin their currency on gold, then those countries who may end up with more gold than the US will actually dominate the whole currency system. So the US decided, no, they're going to do away with the gold, but use the US dollar itself to back itself up, so that it doesn't rely on any other assets the United States doesn't have. So I definitely promote, that as a sign of independence, each country should have its own currency at the initial stage, but I subscribe to us having one common currency for the whole of Africa, which is backed by the resources that we have. I mean, if you look at DRC alone, its mineral resources are worth more than 30 trillion US dollars. But DRC is considered one of the poorest countries in the world. But if it based its currency on the value of the resources that it has, then they could be able to buy anything from anywhere and develop their country. Anything else?
Yes, the last question is from Emmanuel Mazvimba from Zimbabwe.
Okay. What's the question?
He's saying with the African free trade commencing in Africa as of this year, what are the strategies in place to fight xenophobia in South Africa and Namibia, to mention a few as they are big trading partners of many countries?
Well, the essence of the African Free Trade Area or agreement, again, it's one instrument of trying to destroy these ethnic identities, national identities that we have, that are based on the colonial boundaries that we have. So the major thing the African Free Trade Agreement is going to do is to really help bring down the level of xenophobia that you have in some of the countries. And it may take a little bit of time for people who are engaged in xenophobia to really be more educated or to become more conscious of how they are interrelated, to the rest of Africa. And we must also take into account that the enemies of Africa will try to promote these differences. Like you have Julius Malema, who puts it really well when he talks against xenophobia. He says the Black South Africans who will kill other Africans, from other parts of Africa simply because they claim they're taking their apartments, they're taking their jobs and so forth. But the apartments they are talking about, they don't own them. They're owned by white people. So why should you kill another black man for the sake of trying to protect the white man's property, rather than look at how you can cooperate and collaborate with your fellow African? So I think, the other aspect of the Africa Free Trade Agreement is that it's going to open up communications, open borders. Ultimately, you shouldn't be able to get a visa to move from one African country to the other. You can just travel where we do with American passports, that you can just go to any part of the world with an American passport. You either get your visa at the airport and so forth. And yet for many of our African countries, you have to have a visa before they even allow you to get onto the plane to go to their countries.
Thank you so much, Mr. Makandera.
Okay.
Yes, we can continue with the reports.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to sign out, and you all have a great day.
Yes, thank you, sir.
All right.
Up next, we have Londiwe Posula from South Africa. Can you hear me, Londiwe?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Greetings to our leaders, to ambassadors, members, and our guest for today. This is South African Weekly Report from the 3rd of April to the 9th of April. It goes as follows. The I Love Black People Country Action Group bio-mission goal, activities, and definition were kept on the group. Respect, support, discipline was maintained on the group. No undesired conduct was detected. Ambassador's leaderboard for recommendation was posted for congratulations and also encouragement to other members to play their part for a chance to be featured in the leaderboard. After the struggle is how the format of business recommendation is to be written via WhatsApp, our moderator posted the sequence to enable members to properly draft a business recommendation, with health being a top priority. Members were found to be not fully engaging in activities, with only a few keeping the spirit alive, and were encouraged to be more engaging and play their part in achieving the mission and objective of the movement. The African Agenda 2063 sparked informative, educative, and discussions, and was also challenged along with the issues of racism and humiliation against the people worldwide, especially this racism with people from with Jewish people against Black people. A post of time changes in the Saturday community conference call was posted, and a link to confirm attendance via register. For those who are not present on the 3rd of April, the community conference call was said to be interesting and educational, and members were encouraged to attend today. For travelers to South Africa, transportation and a transportation guide and tour guide was shared on the group, which was very much well received. It can be used by anyone who is wishing to travel to South Africa and be safe, of course. Historical Black achievements in various areas were posted on the group, and it shined light on Black excellence and enlightened members, followed by debates on the truth about African roots and understanding misconceptions about Africa. Views shared remain personal and not taken as views of the movement. I Love Black People honoring victims of genocide against the Tutsis was posted on 7 April, and members were encouraged and did remember to honor the victims of the Rwandan genocide. And it was led, the army that disabled the perpetrators of the genocide were led by H.E. Paul, who was able to defeat them. Personal views were, of course, shared on the group with regards to the matter. Active participation is highly appreciated, and members are encouraged to take their part. And our commitment to fight against xenophobia, racism still remains of great importance. COVID update. Tests conducted in South Africa so far are 10 million, with over 1.5 million total cases. Total recoveries are around 1.45 million, while fully vaccinated are 283,629. Cases between the 26th of March and 8th April were 13,412, with a weekly average of just under 800. COVID protocols must be observed at all times, as failure to do so will lead to a punishment in the court of law. I am because we are. I Love Black People, reported by Ambassador Mposula. Thank you.
Thank you, Londiwe. The last report from there's some from Cameroon. There's some, can you hear me? There's some Roland from Cameroon. There's some, can you hear me?
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Good evening, brothers and sisters. Thank you being here to share. I love Black people, Cameroon. Really report. Date April 9th, 2021, report under review from April 3rd, 2021 to April 9th, 2021. Highlight of activity on the country group. Zoom meeting held last Saturday. Moderator Augustine and Pande thanked member and ambassador for attending conference call. Preparation of this Saturday call in session started on Monday. So Augustine Pande always encourage member and ambassador to attend Saturday conference calls. Topic for chatting were posted on member were always invited to participate. Zambia's history was on country and were ambassador to submit business recommendation. Moderator Augustine and Pande encouraged to write and submit weekly report. 1994 Rwanda genocide commemoration. Queen Anna Zinga's brief bio was shared on the platform. COVID-19 update in Cameroon. Coronavirus cases 61,731. Death 919. Recovered 56,926. From Cameroon, here is Ambassador Roland Gassam. Thank you very much. I am because you are.
Thank you so much, Gassam from Cameroon. Up next, you can welcome.
Thank you, ma.
Yes, thank you too. Akua.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
We're ready? Okay. All right. Greetings, everyone. Nana Akua. And so we are starting our Pan-African healthcare course. If you have been with us in previous weeks, or if you are new, it's basically set up as a 5-week course that repeats itself. So if you missed parts of it, great, you can continue to log in and catch whatever you missed. If you've been on for the past 5 weeks and this may be a repeat, but it can sort of serve as a refresher because I'm sure I never say the same thing the same way. So I'm sure you'll get some additional information. I hope everyone is well. What I want to do, if the host can allow me to share my screen, what I would like to focus on today initially, if you can enable me to share the screen, please.
Yes, I did it.
All right. Okay. So I'd like you to take a look at this and maybe start kind of checking off how you're feeling while I kind of give sort of the flow for today's course. So basically how the course is set up and why it was set up was to provide our people all over the planet information on how to stay well from a holistic perspective. I'm a traditional healer, 20 plus years of experience in holistic or traditional healing. So of course I'm coming from that place of natural healing, holistic healing, herbal medicine, spiritual healing, all of those areas. And so the goal is to teach people for themselves, for their households, and then of course for their communities, to be able to recognize some signs of illness or dis-ease, and then how to navigate through that. Understanding what holistic principles exist or what holistic healing is. We'll discuss various types of diets or eating plans or routines. We'll talk about very briefly the various modalities within holistic healing, herbal medicine, homeopathic medicine, essential oils, flower essences or flower remedies. We'll talk about nutrition. We'll talk about detoxification and cleansing. We'll talk about juicing, and I may have left out something, but pretty much any and everything that has to do with how to assess yourselves for how well you are and where some deficits may lie, and sort of what things we can do about it. So it is sort of giving an overview of these concepts. But what I'd like to start off with is one of the ways to assess how you are doing. One of the most commonly asked questions is, how are you? And I think that most times we don't give the most honest answer, or we'll give sort of a generalized answer. This stress symptom checklist, I think, helps us to just assess for ourselves how well we're doing. So I would like, and this ties into what holistic medicine is. Basically, holistic medicine is considering the whole or entire person. And that would include our typical mind, body, spirit, but would also consider other aspects such as social or relational, as well as spiritual. So we have the physical, the spiritual, relational or social, we have emotional, and then mental well-being. And because everything is interconnected and everything is relevant to the other, we have to consider all of these aspects to know just how well we're doing or how we are in fact feeling. So I'd like you to really sort of consider each of these areas. And it's listed sort of as a stress symptom checklist, but doesn't necessarily have to be stress, but just actually giving an idea in each of these areas, your current state. If you're physically stressed, you know, are there digestive issues? Are there increased heartbeats? Are there, or heart rate? Is there an unsettled way about your body? You know, are there muscle spasms? Is there muscle tension? Are your teeth clenched? Has your weight fluctuated? Do you have good bowel movements or good bowel habits? What's the condition of your skin? Are there rashes or breakouts? What is your energy level? How well are you sleeping? These are all things that fall under physical health. Do you have aches and pains, whether headaches or joint pains, things of that nature? And then in regards to emotional health, you know, how are you typically? Are you highly irritated? Are you anxious? Are you moody? Are you depressed? Are you worried? Do you have crying spells? Are you having a bad temper? Are you worrying a lot? Do you have little to no joy? Things of that nature. So that's to best assess how well you're doing emotionally. Spiritually, are you feeling satisfied? Do you feel like you're living a fulfilling life? Or do you feel empty? Do you feel like you lack meaning or purpose? Do you feel you don't have a sense of direction? Are you cynical? Are you apathetic, unforgiving, doubtful? These all speak to your spiritual wellness. Relational or social questions under this area include things like, do you lash out? Are you lonely? Do you have resentment? Do you interact well with others? Do you clam up when you're among other people or in relationships with people? Do you lack intimacy? Do you have friends, or do you have few contacts with other people or few contacts with friends? Things of this nature. This is what helps you assess your social well-being. And then mentally, are you forgetful? Do you lack productivity? Are you often confused, lethargic, bored? Do you do a lot of negative self-talk? Do you have poor concentration? All of these speak to your mental acuity or your mental well-being. So I really want you to just consider those things first. I know you've been sitting probably for at least an hour or more. And so I kind of want you to focus from some of the issues with the outer world and focus on how you are feeling today within your body, within your mind, within your spirit, and really take that sort of self-assessment. What I'd like to point out is part of knowing how you're doing is making these sort of assessments or personal or self-assessments. And the last part of the class later on, maybe I think the 4th or 5th week, we do go over some of these other assessments that I'm scrolling through now that I think you should see as I'm sharing the screen. So no, self-assessment is going to be crucial with this. And so I want to make sure that even if you skip ahead, because if you have the packet, which I have posted through the WhatsApp, you feel free to go through and start really completing some of these questionnaires. If you were in class last week, we did discuss some of these. So if you didn't take that opportunity, this is sort of another reminder, because as we start over or go back to class 1, which is today, not only knowing what holistic principles or concepts are is important, but also just sort of knowing where you are in your overall wellness journey, okay? So let me skip here. So let's talk about some holistic principles. Again, we have to consider all parts of the person and addressing all of those areas, and a care plan, I don't want to say treatment plan, but a course of action based off of those 5 or more concepts is how we achieve holistic wellness. But some basic principles. Holistic principles include things such as, I am responsible for my own health and well-being. All people have innate healing powers. The patient, or let's just say the individual, is a person, not a disease. And treatment is finding and fixing the cause of the condition, not just alleviating the symptoms. So these are some primary holistic healing principles. No matter where you are, this will differ from what we call allopathic or Western medicine, whether practiced here or on the continent or wherever within the world. If it's not following these principles, it's not addressing the whole entire person. and you really want to look to someone who is considering all of these things, finding the root cause of the problem, not just giving some kind of medicine or remedy that is going to alleviate the symptom. Symptoms are good because they alert us to a problem. However, we have to determine what actually has caused or brought about those symptoms. So it's not bad to consider the symptoms. And of course, that's what you have to go on, right? You notice that you're not feeling well because you have a pain in a part of the body, or the mind or the spirit, or you have a fever, or a part of the body is inflamed. So these are symptoms. And of course, it's good to take note of those because that is how you know. That is your body's way of saying there is something wrong. There's something out of balance. There's something out of alignment. It's just that we have to then go step by step to figure out what could be causing that. Is it something I've eaten? Is it something I've put on or in my body otherwise, other than food or drink? Is it an environment that I was in? Is it something I washed my clothes in? Is it people that I've been around that is impacting my emotional or spiritual well-being? So all of these concepts are important, but finding out what is causing the symptom, I would say, is key. Healing will always affect our entire spectrum. If we, let's say, start making changes in our diet, this will not only have an effect on our physical well-being, but also bring changes to our emotional and mental layers of being. So these concepts, I wanted to point out. Another thing that I want to point out here is the cause of disease or illness. Usually it's going to be toxicity or malnutrition. So either there is the lack of proper nutrients in the body, so directly related to what you are eating, and or some type of toxin that is in the body, whether a disease-causing microorganism or some other foreign substances or thing that is in the system that is causing it to be toxic or to be out of balance or unhealthy. So bear that in mind. Recovery approaches. So again, you have to figure out what is causing the problem. So you'll go through these various aspects to figure out or to make that assessment of how you're doing. So we have to evaluate the diet. If we scroll down, there are various diets that are listed in this handout, but at the end, apparently, okay. So healthy foods or a food as medicine. So we want our foods to be healing. We know, again, as I've discussed previously, we enjoy eating. A lot of us eat for pleasure. And not that we should not enjoy what we're eating. That should not be our primary focus. We should use food as medicine and we should eat to live as opposed to just living to eat and for the pleasure of it. And so there's a quote that states, "The wise man should consider that health is the greatest of human blessings. Let food be your medicine." So another quote that says, I'm forgetting it now. Good health is worth all your money, you know. So we really should focus on, or your health is your wealth is another kind of interpretation of that. But basically, we should really put more thought into what we put into our bodies, what we eat, what we consume, and know that that has a direct correlation to how we feel, how our bodies function, so on and so forth. Okay, and so basically we can heal ourselves through our food. And so this section focuses on really taking charge of your health through what you put into the body. And there's a concept of clean eating or organic eating or holistically eating or mild food diets or eating, light and as naturally as possible. And so all of these, and they're not all exactly the same, but all of these speak to the concept of being very a minimalist in terms of eating, things that are simple and not full of a lot of additives, preservatives. Usually you shouldn't have to do a whole lot to your food. Eating it in its most natural state is going to be ideal. But you would come up with whatever strategy works for you, whether it's a vegetarian diet, whether it's a raw food diet, whether it's a diet where you've eliminated certain types of foods. If you're still going to consume flesh, maybe restricting it to seafood or restricting it to just poultry. Or if you're still consuming heavier meats, then making sure that you have a high volume or high percentage of vegetables. Or even if you say, I still want to eat certain foods, trying to focus on a high alkaline diet to where you strictly, limit your meats and acid forming foods and dairy products and things of that nature. You will have to just create what will work for you. It's easy for someone such as myself to say, you should only eat this and that. But we're all adults. You have free will. You can choose what it is you will consume. And the key is to be consistent. And as a healer, if I would ever steer someone one way or the other, I want them to be compliant. So choosing an area that actually is going to work for you and that you can consistently follow is going to be key, as opposed to me just saying, oh, you shouldn't eat any meat, or you shouldn't eat any dairy, or you shouldn't, consume sugar. You really just have to get the information, compose a diet. And maybe the first step is keeping a food diary to even remind yourself just how much of what you're consuming and at what times or in what amounts, and then coming up with what you can realistically do. Okay, so there are well, let me not skip this part. A good place to start, they're saying here in this handout, a healthy diet is not counting calories. It's not deprivation, similar to what I was just saying. On the contrary, it's giving the body all the nutrients it needs to be energetic and full of life. Drinking water instead of sugary sodas is best. Alkaline water is best. I do distilled water as well. Reduce or stop completely all meat, dairy, and sugar. Again, ideally that may be the answer, but not realistic for most people. So you may start with limiting the consumption of those items. Drink 1 green smoothie and or fresh vegetable juice every day. Carrots and celery, they're suggesting. I'm not so much of a smoothie person, but it's become very popular. So if that's your thing, great. If you have a juicer and you actually want to juice the vegetables, great. But these were just sort of some suggestions. As I've already stated, fit in what works for you until you kind of want to step it up and do something further. Healthy diet choices may be things like a raw food diet. If this is new to you, this would take some studying, some research in terms of figuring out how to use a dehydrator, how to do some marinating and some foods that aren't heated above, I think it's 100 degrees. But that's something that one would consider so that you get all of the nutrients in its full whole state, where we've not heated it and lost any of the nutrients from the foods. That's an option, but that's a very strict option. Most people, well, not most, there are not a lot of people necessarily that follow this, but it is something you can do even if it's for a period of time throughout the year. So there are some people who go on a raw food fast or raw food diet for a certain number of days or weeks. And they may do that every season, for example. So there's ways to incorporate some of these diets, even if it's not on a daily basis. The next one is juicing or juice fasting. Same thing. Wouldn't be something that you would do every day, for example, but it may be something that you would do every season or every month, and you pick a day or 2 or 7, and you basically consume freshly juiced fruits and vegetables. The rule of thumb in terms of my training is fruits and vegetables don't go together. There are different enzymes that are needed to digest different foods, including fruits and vegetables. But of course, nowadays, because smoothies have become so popular, you have people that just throw in everything. Again, not my thing. I'm not so much into smoothies. I'm more so of a juicer. And even with juicing, there's still some, I think, rules of thumb. So a good juicing book, you could look into in terms of what combinations work well. Usually an apple or a cucumber or a piece of ginger would more than suffice in terms of making things palatable. Certainly if it's a green juice, not everyone is going to just love kale all by itself. So yes, you may add a green apple to it. So that of course you can easily consume it. The thing I would suggest with juicing is if you are being conscious about your weight, or you're doing it to kind of shed some extra pounds, you would not overly consume root vegetables like beets or carrots, nor on the fruit side would you consume a lot of the more sweet fruits like pineapple or mangoes and things of that nature, because they have more calories than some other fruits and vegetables. So, it's again, all as to why or how you're doing it, but just something I thought I would note. Following the alkaline diet, I mentioned this also, so even if you are consuming meat and dairy, limiting how much. Ideally, we would do 65 to 70% of alkaline forming foods and only 30% or so of acid forming foods. And there are charts available that I'm sure you can easily Google that will give you what are alkaline forming foods and what are acid forming foods. And of course, your acid forming foods are going to be, as I've already stated, things like dairy and meat products. Your more alkaline forming foods are going to be your fruits and vegetables, and say a lime and an avocado and some others that are not coming to mind right now are very alkaline forming. And of course, in this time of COVID, you have the concept that eating, of course, high alkaline foods is what will keep the body prepared for fighting off certain viruses and other illnesses, because you consume foods that have a higher pH than the virus itself. As a good rule of thumb, though, I think you'll have a lot of healers that will talk about lemon water as the first drink in the morning. I happen to prefer lime. Lime is more alkaline than lemon. I mean, they're both great. So lime water is something that I drink throughout the day. I'm not a juice or soda or tea person, really. So lime water is sort of my go-to drink throughout the day. But if for no other time, if you can consume water with lime or lemon, I think you'll really do your body good. Another dietary option is the macrobiotic diet. This does include cooked foods, but they're still primarily vegetarian based, but they include certain grains. And follows, it's a Asian or Chinese-based type of diet, which again, you can Google their macrobiotic restaurants that have sort of your kimchis and bok choys and a lot of the well-known Asian vegetables and other grains like your brown rices and your quinoas and your amaranth and millet and things of that nature that they use as their primary diet to bring the body back into balance and harmony. So that's one option that you can also consider. The Gerson diet, this was used where it pretty much focuses on organic, vegetarian diet, raw juices, coffee enemas, and natural supplements. So sort of not just a strict diet, but combining other things like cleansing rituals and supplementation. So another option for you. So these are other diets that one could look into when we're talking about healing the body and considering how to be in good health. Detoxification is key. We have a whole section on that we will talk about as well. So I won't go so much into that, but if we go back up to the top here, that is what the next item was. We'll talk about that. I think that's week 3. Fasting is in that same category, so we will talk about that. Foods to avoid. I think there are probably many foods to avoid. I've kind of mentioned some indirectly up to this point today, but what I probably not focus, so meaning like acid forming foods, a lot of meats and dairies. What I haven't focused on a lot so far is sugary foods. I probably would suggest if one was trying to change their diet, maybe even before trying to be a vegetarian, I might suggest cutting out sugar. That's probably a bigger challenge for people. I know a lot of vegetarians or even people who are vegan who still struggle with sweets or sugary foods. So I know a lot of times we assume that consuming or not consuming, I should say, meats is a harder task. I think not consuming sugars is an even harder task. But we know that, again, we want healthy foods as in a natural state as possible. We don't want things that have hydrogenated oils and food colors, yellow number 5 or 6 or blue lake number 40 or red number whatever. So we want foods without colors. We want foods without hydrogenated oils. We want foods without flavor enhancers, such as monosodium glutamate, like MSG. That is the long name, the name, or what MSG is, monosodium glutamate. We want foods that don't contain a lot of hidden sugars. Anything with OSE at the end, we know is a type of sugar. So maltose and well, sucrose is our typical table sugar, but every other kind of oats is a sugar as well. Even fructose, which is our fruit sugars, which is still going to be better than say a sucrose or all these. Lactose is milk sugar, and I'm forgetting all of the others. But anything that will have the OSE at the end, we know is a type of sugar, in addition to some other things, maltodextrin and some other sugars that don't say the word sugar, SUGAR, but just know, and we'll talk about that in the detox section as well, because there are many hidden sugars. There are many foods that contain sugars that maybe we don't even know or consider that they contain sugar. So just know we'll talk more about that. Water, we know that water is vital. These are some basic concepts that we're just going over right now. We know that our bodies are 2/3 water. Water is life. Water cleanses, it replenishes. Water is just needed in every regard, right? And so I generally, as a rule of thumb, do either distilled or alkaline water. And I generally will make sure to consume half my weight in ounces. So if a person, for example, is 160 pounds, then 80 ounces of water is what they need throughout the day. And we know that we want to drink that maybe in 2 to 4 hour intervals. We don't want to consume large amounts of water all at one time, because we know that it will just simply overwork the bladder and the kidneys. And we're going to then just have a lot of trips to the restroom, and we're releasing all of that in the body, not really having time to absorb it. Okay. And again, we'll talk more about those things. But one other concept that I wanted, and the reason I used this handout, is I wanted to also talk about holistic health and wellness as it relates to Mother Nature, as it relates to the earth. And Asian medicine or Chinese medicine has just done a great job, I think, at making that correlation or giving that kind of connector piece to kind of help one understand how we are one with nature, and how there is this interconnectedness. And so I wanted to at least include some of these things. Now, I'm not a, what do you call it? An avid Chinese medicine practitioner or follower per se, so I don't understand or know in detail all of these concepts, but these are pretty basic that I thought would apply for just the average lay person just wanting to understand how the elements and everything related and what they related to. So 5 elements of healing and the seasons of the year. To everything there's a season, and to every season there is a rhythm. In Chinese system, the 5 elements are not static forms. The more accurate translation would be the 5 walks or the 5 moves. And so in this regard, water corresponds to the season of winter. Wood is the season of spring. Fire correlates with the season of summer. Earth with the time of the solstice or equinox. And so then we know that that's every season, but right at that crux where there's that changing over, that is an earth element or earth concept. And then metal correlates to the season of autumn. And so there's a little further explanation here where it talks about the water element. Where this, the rhythm of winter embodies the seed, the embryo, the potential. It embodies a fresh spirit with childlike enthusiasm. Energies may be limited since this season has little sun, but it knows how to retreat into themselves and regenerate. They reflect deeply and talk slow. Their walk is unhurried and rolling like water. Courage is their foundation, which under stress may turn into anger. These are concepts, and I think just if you've ever heard of the concept of eating with the seasons, I think this is sort of to move or vibrate with the season, or as they say, the rhythm of that particular season. This is just sort of an idea of just sort of how to function in that time frame. And I think that is easy to follow because yes, things kind of slow down in the winter. A lot of things are sort of dormant because, of the lack of sun in certain parts of the world, not everywhere, right? But this is a time to kind of go inward, and that makes total sense, right? Taking kind of time to go inward. You're not maybe out as much. Not so much dealing with outside, influences and that sort of thing. The wood element, this is the rhythm of spring. This is a time of new growth. This rhythm embodies the power and insistence of new life. That makes perfect sense. This is when we grow our crops and when things are starting anew. The wood element, people are strong and calm in their space. Their vision of truth and justice inspires others. They are sure of themselves with good judgment and wise decisions. The spring person is at risk of becoming arrogant, inflexible, and opinionated though, right? The wood element person talks loudly, choppy, skippy rhythm. Their walk is also choppy, hitting the ground with clear, concise movements. And when under stress, the spring person's assertiveness may turn into anger. Now, let me point out, if you were with us maybe 4 weeks ago when we were talking about emotional health and we were talking about flower remedies, if you remember, I spoke about different aspects of our being, and not all are pleasant, not all are attractive, right? So I talked about the flower essences or the flower remedies that are for certain types of people, or we have certain emotions, whereas we need different types of flower remedies. And some of those characteristics are not always flattering. So you'll see here, same concept, but we have to be honest with ourselves. And that's part of how or why I started the way I did. We have to make a good, accurate, honest assessment, right, of who we are, of how we feel, of what is going on with us, what circumstances we're in, so that we can get back into alignment. And so we need to know what our shortcomings are. So we need to know when we may become arrogant, and so that we can avoid it, or when something that we're doing may go from just being assertive and being a go-getter to being an angry person. So all of this, I think, is important. We have to look at these things without judgment of ourselves or others if we identify these things in others. Okay, the fire element, the rhythm of summer. A summer person, this person is like wildfire, right? Spreading in every direction with rapid, random, wild rhythm, right? Summer people act from their heart. They are warm, emphatic, joyful to exuberant characters, really outgoing people. They are charismatic. They have the ability to pull their surroundings out of self-imposed limitations and spread confidence. So they're kind of free. They're, they spread confidence. They exude confidence. They talk with laughter, skip in their walk. They're skipping about, just showing joy. But also the fire element person can be stressed. Their joy and passion can then turn into panic and hysteria, right? So again, we have to be mindful of that good aspect and that possible or potential bad aspect. There's always going to be that yin and yang, that balance, those opposing elements. The earth element, the rhythm of the equinox, late summer up to harvest, centered and in transition, in perfect balance. The earth element person knows about holding steady. It symbolizes justice, fairness, stability, being properly anchored. This element of harvest time, abundance, nourishment, fertility, mother-child relationship, these are all things that happen during this time for this type of person. The earth element person's motion is patient, reliable, logical, governed by service and duty to others. Militaristic, stubborn, very energetic in a steady, patient kind of way. This is sort of the supreme sort of balance, I suppose, right? Which is probably a challenge to achieve. And then the metal element. This is the rhythm of autumn or ending. The metal element is also known as the air element. It's the force of gravity, the minerals within the earth, the patterns of the heavenly bodies, powers of electrical conductivity and magnetism. Metal has structure, but it can also accept a new form when molded or molten. These people can be stretched between heaven and earth. Their energies are serene, barren, yet dignified. This person embodies completion, the dying off of the old, making way for the new. Autumn person, they have an urge to be imperfect, to achieving highly, or high achievers. What is perceived as impure, whether it's ideas, behaviors, systems, is eliminated. The metal element people, they understand the world's grief. Out of this sadness, they are able to bring forth kindness, honesty, and integrity. Autumn people may become overly serious though, and even sink into depression, shunning fun and lacking pleasure. So again, that's that other side of it. So there's some great characteristics, but also some not so great. So again, determining sort of where you are kind of helps you understand yourself and how you connect with aspects of nature or the elements or the walks of nature. There's also another concept here that I just thought was interesting. And again, this strictly goes into Chinese medicine. It's a little different from what we've maybe typically learned up to this point, but I thought this was interesting. So again, use it if you see fit. But basically, a meridian clock is used to help diagnose or treat energy imbalances, right? So basically, the human body has 12 meridians, and each meridian complements its opposite meridian. And so 6 are yin, 6 are yang properties. And what I found most interesting is just knowing how and when your body works, right? The system clock. Where basically for each time frame in the day, there is a function going on within the body. And it also will tell you whether that's a yin or a yang function. And usually in Chinese medicine, we know yin is usually associated with female, but men and women will have yin and yang characteristics. But yin will be usually the female, cooler, softer, gentler kind of characteristic. Yang will be usually the masculine, more heated, hot, inflamed, more aggressive type of characteristic, right? And so this meridian clock here basically just tells us at what times of the day are the different meridians for the different organs at their height of function or when they're rejuvenating themselves. So I won't go through this, but I find this interesting. And if you want to spend more time looking into at what time is the spleen meridian kind of functioning, and it tells you what problems may be associated with that particular organ meridian. This I found helpful when trying to discover, okay, if you wake up at a certain time, what that might help you identify what issues you may be having, or if there's a certain emotion or mental state that you have at a particular time of the day. This helps you kind of go back and correlate, okay, what's going on in the body during that time frame. I found that to be useful. So yeah, so then let me see if questions. So I'm not sure if any of these questions, okay. Yeah, so I can't see them while I'm looking at the screen. So let me take a moment to see if there are any comments or questions as it relates to the topic. Make sure I don't hit any that were done while Mr. Mahamira was on. Wonderful. Thank you, Ibrahim. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all for your warm greetings. I appreciate you. I'm glad you are back and are warmly receiving me. I'm glad you're enjoying. Greetings, South Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, Cameroon, Namibia. All right. Spiritual healing herbs and examples of those. Huh. Oh, that was a private message. Okay, so y'all gonna make me get out. All right. We got a marijuana question. We got a spiritual herb question. And yes, and if you are new to the group and you don't have the handouts, after class is over, I have another class after this, but if not this evening, then tomorrow I will post to the WhatsApp group the handouts, okay? So that you'll have those. So, and that's one reason I try to share the screen in the event that someone's new or haven't received the handouts. However, I think I'm about to go off for a minute. Honestly, while I'm talking, I'd rather look at the boxes. For the few people that show me their faces, I like that, I prefer that. But I understand we have things going on in the background that everybody can't do that. So I'm going to talk about the herbs for stress and anxiety, probably not sharing the screen, but refined sugar. It's no good, right? Yes, exactly. Give me a second. I just want to read through the comments. I'm awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Deborah. And please, if the host can share again how people can join the WhatsApp group, there is a process. I think with everything virtual, you know, there has to be rules and processes put in place, because you do have what they call those people who troll, or people who have no good intentions, and they just come in and interrupt and disturb the process. So there is a process for joining. The I Love Black People movement does offer this class as a offering, as a free offering to the community, but you do have to go through the process. I guess at least if you're on this link, you at least have that connection, but there is a process that they do to place you in the groups. So I'll let the host maybe post that, and usually it's a time frame, so you would probably have to do it, I think, while the class is running, if I remember from what they've listed or posted from previous courses. So yeah, if the sister can post how people can join the WhatsApp group. Let me just scroll back through. Maybe I am. Okay. Oh, I treasure you too. All right, so let me minimize this and let me stop the share for a moment. I also hate when the numbers drop from, so I don't know, that's just a little thing I end up looking at, because then it makes me like, oh, am I boring? Why was there 45 people and now they're 35? But but I also know that there are, not everyone will have enough internet or whatever to stay on for 2 hours or 3 hours or what have you. So I won't take it personal, right? But I'm glad that all of you are still here. So medical and marijuana, medical and recreational use of marijuana. I do think and know that there are definitely very healing benefits to marijuana. And that's the only place that I can kind of speak from it about. Whatever people choose to do recreationally, you know, I don't think you need anybody's opinion on that one. But I do know that medicinally, there are people who use it for anxiety, for depression, for any number of mental health issues. I know people who are going through other illnesses and have side effects of different medications, whereas they have nausea or poor appetite or pain or what have you, and they need the marijuana to be able to eat or to be able to function. There are people who have debilitating mobility conditions like fibromyalgia or different forms of arthritis, and the marijuana helps with the pain associated with that. I've had or known of cancer patients who have, whether undergoing treatment or not, it helps with the pain of those types of conditions. So I don't think there's any question about the medicinal uses. And so I'm all in support of that. And I do believe that those are, they're very real situations where people need medical marijuana, you know, for their overall health. Now, any other, I guess, answer would probably get into the politics of it, because then the question becomes, especially in this country, becomes, now that it's regulated, it's still, there are only certain people who can kind of get into that business, and they're making a lot of money. But then folk who maybe don't have a medical marijuana card or have the maybe bit of extra money to go and get it through that process are looked upon negatively, and then it's probably considered just recreational use, when in fact they may be using it for healing purposes. Whole nother, you know, issue in that regard. But are there medical uses for marijuana? Yes. There's another question about spiritual herbs. I teach a whole class on traditional herbalism, and I'm going to mention this because I also don't want there to be confusion. There has been. This Pan-African healthcare class is offered through I Love Black People. I have on occasion mentioned the traditional herbalism class that I teach through my ministry. Separate and apart from this class though, but that's probably the best place to get very specific information about herbs, how they work, their properties, their vitamin and nutrient content, including spiritual uses of it. We will have sort of a brief section where we'll talk about herbs. I have not designed this class to deal specifically with spiritual uses of herbs, but as a traditional priest and a herbalist of 25 years, definitely there are uses, and pretty much every herb, not every herb, a lot of herbs that we use commonly on a regular basis for cooking or for physical health issues also have a spiritual healing component. So even your bay leaves or your rosemary or your sage or your chamomile, your fennel. There are many herbs that we may use just in cooking or as a tea that will have spiritual healing uses. My best suggestion for getting more detailed information about that would be to contact me separately via my email and consider that class. That is what I would that's what I would really suggest in that area. I did something. I'm trying to type in my email. Because also there have been people who've said they are not in WhatsApp and couldn't get the materials from WhatsApp. I've also made it available for you to email me, ask for the handouts, and I'll email them to you. But I also post them in the WhatsApp group. But if you are not in the WhatsApp group, I still suggest getting into the WhatsApp group, right? And they have posted that there. right? So just above my email, you are able to click on to join the group. That is what we, of course, want you to do if you're participating in this platform. But also, if you have an interest in something additional that I've said, like the traditional herbalism course, or if for whatever reason you can't get the handout, I will send it to you via email. But yeah, for the traditional herbalism or for specifics about herbs, feel free, to consider the course, and you can email me directly. There was a question about refined sugars, and it probably was while I was talking, so I don't know if I addressed the issue, but yeah, refined sugars are an issue, period. And so I think I've already discussed that, and just stay tuned for our detoxification section, because again, we'll talk more about, and if you have the handouts already, feel free to scroll through. It's under healing 2, I think. Yeah, I think it's under healing 2, where there, after the slideshow, it's the pages are sideways, but just after that, there's some pages that list sugars, hidden sugars, alternatives to sugary sweets and things like that. So if that's something you wanted to look into before we get to that in like the 3rd or 4th week, feel free to do that. All right. So I think I hit the questions. Right. So what I will go back to, since most of y'all not showing me your face anyway, I will go back to sharing this screen so that you can follow along, right, with the next section. So what I think I'll go to next and probably end up today's discussion with is a discussion about herbs that relax the body. These are nervine, or what we call sedative herbs, because everything is such at an emotional height. I think we really underplay the importance of mental health and emotional health, right? And we'll talk more about that next week as well. But I wanted to provide these calming herbs that help with stress and anxiety. A lot of times we are not as productive in our lives because of stress. We're not as calm or kind as we could or probably should be because of stress and anxiety. And just overall lacking in probably the highest character or integrity because of our kind of emotional and mental state kind of being off balance. So I want to really just stress how important it is. And we have these herbs that God has already provided us. They're readily available. Most are plentiful, easy to find. I really want us to learn about these herbs. I have mentioned previously about a syndrome that most of us have. Some people, in the outer world, I think just refer to it as the Superman or Superwoman complex. But I think melanated people or Black people, we know that we sometimes have this strong Black woman syndrome or attribute, right? Or this strong Black man concept. And it sounds good. And definitely it's good. We want to be strong. We want to be powerful. We want to be able to tolerate and withstand certain things. But we also have to be kind and gentle to ourselves. And we also have to be cognizant that we are of flesh. We are mortals. We're human. We have a spiritual experience in sort of these physical mortal bodies, right? And so in order to be as effective and as efficient, we have to really take care of ourselves. And one of those things, or one of those ways, is making sure that our emotions are balanced and that we are not at an emotionally high state to where we cannot think calmly and rational and do what's best for ourselves and our community, right? So there's, some pre-talk here about these herbs. I'll let you read through that on your own. But what I want to talk about is some of these, and I really won't even go through all of them. Some of my favorites, some I don't use as much as others. I will start with this first one, lemon balm. Lemon balm is mildly bitter, but it's not a bad tasting herb. But this is for someone who is angry or full of rage, right? This kind of helps you simmer down, right? A lot of times people like it or are attracted to lemon balm because of the kind of lemony aroma, right? But really good for kind of helping to calm your spirit and your emotions down. You can combine it with chamomile if you choose. But it's great for restlessness, overexcitability in adults and children. If you combine it with motherwort and hawthorn, it helps to reduce the stress, induced palpitations and mildly elevated blood pressure. So if you're having heart issues or blood pressure issues, you can combine lemon balm with hawthorn berry or with motherwort, right? And that can kind of give you some good effects with your blood pressure and heart palpitations. I'm going to skip down to hops. Hops is pretty popular, pretty well known. This is a sedative and nervine herb that's used to help with sleep, helping to reduce libido. I don't know that most people are trying to do that, but if you need that, but this will explain if you're a beer drinker and your libido is not what you need it to be, then you probably should hold off on that. But nursing mothers who are having trouble with letting their milk down or the milk flowing, then hops is good for that. If you're having trouble sleeping, you're restless, hops is great for that. You can use it in a dream pillow. Basically, it's a little sachet or a little pillow you can sew or you put Velcro in it and you stuff it with herbs and things. Hops can be included with lavender. If you're trying to actually have great dreams, you can also add mugwort or dreamwort. Or any other soothing herbs. But hops is what is made, or partially, there's only barleys and grains that beer is made of, but hops is also in beer. I did not say that earlier when I mentioned beer, but yes. But it's a sedative, it slows you down. Chamomile, not my favorite herb. I honestly think it's a little too mild. But if you are a tea drinker and you are in need of, having a sedative effect or kind of calming you down if you've had a stressful or heightened day, but I think it works a little too mildly. I usually would say to give this to maybe children or younger people. This is what in homeopathic form is often used for teething in babies. They have these homeopathic tablets made from chamomile called chamomilla that you'll find in like the teething homeopathic remedies that kind of help settle a baby when they are irritable from teething or when they're irritable from anything, from colic, from some kind of unknown digestive issues like colic. But for adults, honestly, I would usually say add something else to it, like hops or like skullcap or some other herbs. Or you just really have to drink a lot of it. And let me just give my disclaimer also with herbal teas. I'm not a fan of tea outside of just sort of a relaxing cup to drink after dinner or before bed, as sort of a mild calming, effect. because I feel you have to drink too much of it to get the desired effect if you're having sort of an acute situation, right? So, so if you're in a lot of pain or you're highly stressed, all of these herbs can be taken in what's called an extract or tincture form, where the preparation has been infused for weeks, not just a few minutes that you've poured, you know, some hot water over and it's kind of steeped for those few minutes. A herbal extract or tincture for these would be more suitable for someone who has sort of major anxiety or major depression or major insomnia episodes and things like that. But knowing the information of what the herbs do are still important, but not so much in tea form. So I still included this. I don't remember if the top talked about it being for teas. Yeah, so not necessarily in teas. They kind of talk about it in terms of teas here. What I'm saying is it's probably best or more potent to use it in an extract, okay? But let's move on to kava kava. Kava kava is one of those kind of stronger nervine herbs. It has a lot of benefits, especially for anxiety relief. This would be sort of the first one to go to if you're talking about herbal remedies for anxiety. But kava also relieves pain and stiffness associated with body armoring, with anxious feelings. Okay, that says a whole lot. But basically pain and stiffness in the body from being anxious. You know how sometimes the body tenses up and you're really stiff and your shoulders are lifted and they're tight, or you know, every muscle is sort of contracted and all of that, right? This is what it's saying kava is great for. Kava also helps cool hot flashes, eases joint pain, muscle tension, and menstrual cramps. So kava is a great one, right? Again, not something I would just do in tea form. But if that's all you have or you need something quickly, sure. I would just say, don't drink 1 cup and say, oh, that didn't work for me. You know, because that's my concern. I think that when we are turning to natural remedies, we are not always as patient with natural remedies as we are with pharmaceutical drugs. And we have to give it a chance. We have to take it in the right form, combined with the right herbs, you know, to make sure that we get the full efficacy of it, okay? Skullcap is another one. I do like skullcap. I think I mentioned it already, but this is a calming herb for nervous exhaustion, helps strengthen depleted nervous systems. So it's good for people who have spasms. It helps a nervous stomach, helps control tremors, restless legs. It relieves diaphragm spasms. So even for people who say are having maybe respiratory issues, or you have bronchitis or asthma, and the muscles around the diaphragm, under the lungs and all of that, or the lungs itself, which is an organ muscle. If you're having stomach issues, respiratory issues, or just straight nervous system issues, skullcap is great for, okay? Helps with insomnia as well. You can combine it with hops, valerian, or chamomile. And let me just say though, valerian, I'm sure is also on this list, but I would not suggest using that in a tea or a tincture. You will not be happy. Valerian has a very strong smell, and it is not pleasant. So usually, and valerian is one of my favorite herbs, I will say, right? But it does not smell great. So you're gonna usually want to consume valerian in capsule form, okay? But valerian, a strong acting sedative, also helps with gastrointestinal symptoms caused by stress like IBS and diarrhea. They're reiterating what I just said. Doesn't taste good, has a strong odor like dirty socks, yeah, or worse. So yeah, you would really want to do it in capsule form. Even trying to mix it with catnip or chamomile in a tincture or a tea is still not gonna probably suit you very well. But it's one of those herbs that's good to take at whatever age or whatever situation. Children can take it, pregnant women can take it. It's one of those herbs that while I was pregnant and had different pains, whether it's pain in my feet or pain in my back, valerian was a go-to. So it worked really well. Seniors can take it, you know, and anyone who has sort of a, I don't want to say weaker, but a more compromised constitution where you wouldn't just give them anything based on different conditions they have and that sort of thing. But valerian is really good and a good option to as a pain reliever and a sedative or nervine herb. Linden flowers, motherwort, I think I skipped one I would, passion flower. So passion flower, they even call it a weak sedative, right? So maybe not one of the most strongest sedative or nervine herbs, but also really good for back pain, nerve pain, tension, headaches, gastrointestinal problems that are caused by stress. Usually you would add maybe passion flower with, say, a skull cap or a lemon balm or something of that nature. But I do think that passion flower is worth noting. Motherwort is another nervine herb. This is especially helpful for women who are irritable, anxious, and emotionally volatile. Of course, they act like women are the only people that are that way, right? And that's not true. But this just gives an example of a woman who used it. But motherwort, it's not just for mothers or just for women, but also helps reduce hypertension, heart palpitations that are caused by anxiety. But also can be combined with blue vervain for PMS symptoms, cramps, anxious feelings. You can combine it with pulsatilla. Pulsatilla is a homeopathic remedy, and we'll talk about that in I think that's next week. But it's a good combination remedy for anxiety. So motherwort is great, not just for women who are irritable, but also good for people who have hypertension, heart palpitations, who have anxiety, and constant worry and fear, right? So I think motherwort is worth mentioning. Linden flower. Linden flower. If you've become anxious or upset or irritable about something and then you developed a headache, linden flower is good for. So good for general stress, good for blood pressure, helps reduce anxious, depressed feelings, lowers blood pressure, as already stated, eases headaches. Excellent remedy for upset stomach, whether for children or adults, okay? So dragon fruit, haven't much used that for, that's a traditional Chinese remedy. You can read on that, not really much use that or suggested that for calming the system, but definitely has that nervine and sedative effect. Same thing with reishi and maitake mushrooms. These are also out of Chinese medicine that are known to have sort of a sedative or calming effect. So those are just some herbs that we talked about dealing with calming the system down, making sure that we're not always at a heightened state. If we know we're kind of out of balance and need to calm down, please, refer to any of those herbs, because we really have to function at an optimal level, and we can't do that if we're stressed and anxious, okay? So just as a recap for today, for this week, and if you have the packet, great. You can, if you've printed it out, you can fill it in, or if not, you can just make note of it. But basically what we've discussed is sort of what wellness is, or more specifically what holistic wellness is, right? And so what we know is holistic wellness is considering the entire person, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the emotional, the relational, and social aspects, and understanding that they're all interconnected and they're all one, and that they all have to be in balance for one to achieve ultimate wellness, right? And we've talked about, oh, well, maybe we didn't talk about, and I'm glad I looked at this page, maybe we didn't talk about various holistic modalities, right? We talked about different holistic principles. We talked about, you know, some aspects of Chinese medicine and how we are connected to nature and that sort of thing. But let's talk about some healing, holistic healing modalities, right? So we know that there's herbal medicine. We know that there's homeopathic medicine. We know that there's nutrition, you know, and we'll call it holistic nutrition, or the concept of using food as medicine, right? We know that there is aromatherapy, or the use of essential oils for healing. We know that there are a number of touch therapies. This would be your massages, and there are various types of massages or massage therapies, lymphatic massage, acupressure, Swedish massage, deep tissue massage, shiatsu massage. In terms of touch, or maybe not so much touch therapies, Reiki and polarity balancing. These are kind of hands-on or touch therapies that we know exist. Reflexology, which is a specialized hand and foot massage that stimulates healing in the body. Other healing modalities, a number of the detoxification regimens, colon cleansing or colon hydrotherapy, ionic foot detox. There are H2O2 therapies where you soak in 35% hydrogen peroxide to detox the body. There's magnetic clay cleansing or detox therapies. Number of different types of baths that one can use, healing baths to cleanse or detox the body, and so on and so forth. I'm sure I'm leaving some off, and I'm really just sort of going just what's coming to me. And I'm sure there are other ones. Acupuncture would fall under here, chiropractic would fall under here. These are still holistic healing modalities because they're using principles of balancing the body without invasive procedures or pharmaceutical or man-made, you know, drugs. So, and if later I add to this list, fine, but this is just so that you know what holistic remedies exist or what they are. Hypnotherapy would be intuitive therapies or intuitive services that people may offer, spiritual divination or spiritual readings. All of these things would be under that umbrella of holistic healing. Moving on to the next one, we did talk about what the causes of disease. And remember, I stated that a very simplistic but very thorough and accurate explanation or answer for this is toxicity and malnutrition. And so you're going to either address an issue with making sure the body is properly nourished and or detoxed of whatever is causing the illness in the body. We talked about water, we talked about stress, we talked about food and diet. We'll talk more about detoxification, but I did also go over that a bit. Next week, we'll definitely talk about emotional balancing. And we didn't talk about exercise and movement, but definitely we know that the body has to move. Whether you are part of a gym or you do a specific physical workout, we know that at the very least, right? We have to move our bodies, whether it's walking, whether it's basic calisthenics, where we do exercises, standing exercises, floor exercises, stretches, you know, jumping jacks, whatever. Or whether we're doing weight resistance training or weight lifting or cardio training. Movement is important. Movement is important. If nothing else, making extra trips up and down your steps. Or what my 5-year-old and I do is we march in place. It's something to give her something to do, and it's something to get me moving when I know I've been sitting at the desk too long. And especially in the winter, if it's too, you know, cold or there's snow and not suitable to be outside, getting movement and walking. So movement and exercise is essential. And just as with moving the body, another type of exercise, if I don't mention it, I know I will mention it again when we talk about detoxification, because one of the paths of elimination is the lungs. And so another type of exercise that we also have to make sure we do is moving and exercising our lungs. Fortunately, we don't have to think about breathing. It's an involuntary movement, but we can voluntarily exercise our lungs and make sure our breath is strong and our lungs are strong, and that our endurance can withstand what we need to do. Is conscious breathing is important. And so moving in that regard, or exercising the respiratory system in that regard. So whether it's fire breaths, whether it's long, slow, deep breaths, there are conscious breathing exercises that we have to do as well to exercise our lungs. Okay. Make sure there are no other questions. Yeah, Nana Akua or Nana Akua is the same person. My WhatsApp is Queen Mother Akua. So I will repost it on WhatsApp, or if you email me. I see a couple people have sent their emails. If you send me an email requesting it, it's easier for me to reply and send it to you. Because I will not be able to write your emails down and to send that. But again, it will be on the WhatsApp platform, and I have just sent my email again in case you didn't see it before. And I know it's hard to kind of scroll through all of the comments so that you don't have to go back to get my email. Malawi. Oh, okay. He missed his weekly report. So yeah, and I know that sometimes the morning meeting and the weekly reports and things kind of run over. I make myself available from 10:30 to 12:30. And so, you know, the first part of the call is important. I'm usually kind of sitting and holding, or I've rushed from previous appointments to get here, right, to be available. And I know they ran over, but I'm going to always try to stick with finishing at 12:30. So just so that you'll know, if we start at 10:30, fine, I'm available to 12:30. If we don't get to start until 11 or a little later, I still need to end at 12:30. But know that I'm going to still make sure that I've covered the information. And usually if you follow the syllabus and have the course materials, you'll always know what we're teaching on the next week anyway. So you can always prepare, read through whatever course materials that you saw in that area that corresponds to that part of the syllabus. But I will end, let me see, there's one more message. Yeah, I'm not sending an email. You can email me and I will respond, okay? So if there are no other questions, I will end here. I thank you all who have stayed to the end. I appreciate you. And I hope you learned a lot of information. Check us out next week. We'll go into some herbal information, some homeopathic remedies. We'll talk about some flower remedies that balance the emotions. And I think some essential oils. So we'll sort of do, yes, we may do that in 2 parts, but that is what we will talk about next week. So I will look forward to seeing you all next week. And so as always, I bid you good health and peace.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Y'all have a good weekend.